Hey everyone, hope you're doing okay this Sunday morning. So this Sunday marks 1 week since Easter Sunday, where we celebrated the death and resurrection of Jesus. And today, to continue with that Easter theme, we're going to be looking at a part of the Bible where Jesus reveals himself to some of his disciples after he's been raised from the dead. But before we have a look at that, I wondered if you could take part in a little activity with me. You'll need something to write with and something to write on, so maybe a piece of paper, or a notepad, a pen or a pencil, or maybe you might want to write on your phone, something like that. But don't worry, I'll give you time to run and get something like that in just a second. I'll explain what we're going to do first. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take a moment just to maybe think about 3 ways we could have maybe focused a little bit more on Jesus this week. Now, this isn't to make us feel guilty or bad, because times are hard at the moment. We can't see our friends and our family as we normally would. We can't go to our schools and our workplaces as usual. There's a lot going on. So whilst we do this, we've got to be kind to ourselves and remember that life isn't easy at the moment. But still, there might be that there were some ways that you could have maybe put God at the forefront of your life a little bit more this week. So for example, maybe you could have had a bit more prayer time or a bit more Bible study, maybe given thanks. Maybe you could have turned to God if you're feeling sad or worried, rather than taking out some of those fears on your friends or family members. Maybe you could have just made a bit more time to listen to God. Now, I know I could have done all of those things a lot more this week, but I'm going to write down just 3. So I'd invite you to take part in that with me and see if you can write 3 things down, 3 ways that maybe you could have focused on God a little bit more this week. So the lovely Morta is just going to pause the video for a minute and a half now, just to give us time to do that. Thanks, Morta. Okay, so I hope that was okay doing that. Here's what I put. So I put that this week I could have first of all talked to God a lot more. I think often I found it hard to talk to God where I'm feeling a bit worried or scared. I know that sometimes talking to God means I actually have to face what I'm feeling inside, and I've not wanted to do that, so often then that's just meant I've not talked to God at all, which is not the best thing. So I could have talked to God a lot more this week. Also, I think maybe I could have made more time to give thanks for all the good things that God has put in my life, like a place to live, for my friends and family, for a job, for food and drink. And I think sometimes I forget to say thanks to God for all of the good things he does. And the other thing is that I think I could have turned to the Bible a bit more. I know that God does speak to us through the Bible, through his word. But again, I think frequently I've kind of avoided doing it in the same kind of similar vein to how I've not wanted to talk to God. I haven't always wanted to look at the Bible because I've not really wanted to come face to face with what maybe I'm feeling inside and maybe what God wants to say. But it'd be really interesting to know what you guys put too. Thanks for doing that with me. The reason why we actually looked at all of that is because there's a really good message in the Bible, and it's really encouraging because actually Jesus' disciples, they make lots of mistakes like this too. And there are lots of times where they forget to put Jesus first. In the Easter story, during Jesus' trial, Simon Peter one of Jesus' closest disciples, he denies Jesus 3 times, says that he doesn't know him, he has no allegiance to him, he doesn't follow him, anything. And so what I'm about to read from you is where Jesus challenges Simon on this, but then he forgives him wholeheartedly and in such a wonderful way. So I'm going to be reading from, this is a New International Children's Bible, and I'm going to be looking at John 21. What's happened is that so far in the chapter, the disciples have been fishing, and a man comes to see them, but they don't realise that it's Jesus. But then eventually they do go and talk to this man. They realise it's Jesus. And here's the best bit. He makes them breakfast on the beach. I think that's just it's one of my favourite parts of the Bible, that Jesus makes them breakfast on the beach. But I'm going to be looking at verses, so chapter 21, verses 15 to 17. So if you want to read along with me, you absolutely can. Okay. Jesus talks to Peter. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Take care of my lambs." Again, Jesus said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." A third time he said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, "Do you love me?" Peter said, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." He said to him, "Take care of my sheep." And I think this is a really, really encouraging passage, because actually Jesus is showing here that he knows the ways that maybe we don't always respond to him or talk to him as much as we could. And yet he loves us so unconditionally, and he still gives us such a purpose. He gives us such forgiveness. He gives us a future in spite of all of those things. And ultimately, he makes us breakfast. He cares for all of our needs, including ones as basic as our food and drink. So I just want to encourage you today that maybe you're feeling like you could have focused a bit more on God this week. I absolutely put my hands up and say I could have done. But our God is a God who restores us, who forgives us for every little thing, and who still has such a future for us. He tells Simon to feed his sheep, and I think that's the same for us. We're called to feed his sheep as well. Have a great day, guys.